Okay. Right, if that's the recording started, we'll just begin. Right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Can I ask the people that are joining remotely, I presume it's the kind of attendees that have asked, could I just ask you to keep your microphone muted? And I'd also highlight, we have members of the press and public here today that have joined, so I'll just remind you, you're here to observe, and unfortunately you're not able to take part in the discussion, but as I say, you're very welcome. So if we just get down to the items of business, the first thing is apologies. Do we have any apologies intimated? No apologies.
We've got apologies from Frank Shannon and who was the other one? And Michelle Wales as substitute. Thank you.
Right, welcome, Michelle. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest, transparency statements? No declarations of interest. Okay. So we'll just go on to the minutes of the last meeting. So I'll not go through them, but if anybody's got any correction or comments, if you want, just put your hands up. Okay, so we can agree the minutes of the last meeting. Agreed. Okay. The next item is a role and action log. So just give me a second. Christine, if you want to run through the logs, I'll bring it up. With me just getting on my laptop at the last minute, I've been working between my phone and my laptop, two things. So Christine, if you want to just run through the role and log, please.
Sure. So the first one is around the appointments of the chair and vice chairs, and that's coming today. The next one is the where we will arrangements for our future meetings, and that's already been decided that from the next meeting onwards that we'll be meeting in person. And Renfrewshire Alcohol and Drug Partnership annual reporting survey will be available. We will share it when it's available. And the Chief Officer's report, there was a request to update on respite services to be included in a future report, and I've got that in my Chief Officer's report today.
Right, excellent. Thanks for that, Christine. I've got my paperwork in front of me now. So then the next item is membership update. Is that just one that you just ran through there? Is this updating Frank's position?
David? Thank you, Convener. I'm happy to speak to this. So Frank Shannon's term with NHS GGC as a non-exec is due to end in May 2024. In order to ensure continuity until this role is recruited or replaced substantively, the board have indicated that they will provide a deputy over the vacant period, and as indicated earlier today, Michelle Wales is attending. We anticipate to be in a position in the coming months to confirm the substantive arrangements going forward. Fiona Milne has also indicated that she will be resigning from her role as care representative on the IJB. This will be her last meeting, and work will be taken forward with the IJB chair, vice chair and carer centre to agree a process to identify a replacement, ideally for the June meeting. Again, an update on this will come forward when available. And on that basis, it's expected that a membership update report will be brought forward to the next meeting in June 2024 to give an update on these areas and other changes to the membership. We didn't think it was appropriate to bring forward a written report when we were in the position of not knowing who the replacements were, and that's why it's a verbal update.
Thanks for that, Mark. That's fine. I feel bad that I never got a chance to thank Frank at his last meeting, you know, but I would like to have it in record how much I appreciate both Frank and Fiona's contribution. I thought she was a great advocate for the carers, and she'll be sorely missed in IJB. So thanks for that, Mark. Right, 2 seconds, because I feel as if this has changed slightly from what happened in front of me. So the next item will be Chief Officer's report. That's yourself, Christine.
Yes, thanks very much. So people will be, IJB members will be familiar with this by now, that I usually give an update of any developments or any new policies that have come in that that have an impact on the IJB. So this is an update from our last update, which was the 24th of January. And as always, I'll just highlight a couple of areas, but happy to take any questions, as is the SMT. So the first area is we agreed that we would update at every meeting is our delayed discharge position. It's very positive. As we've previously stated, the last April to December 2023, Renfrewshire was the highest performing local authority in Scotland around our acute standard delays, and certainly throughout January and February of this year, our performances continue to be strong despite the pressures of winter. So we will be updating at every IJB on our delayed discharges. The next item I just wanted to flag was when we mentioned it then, the rolling action log is item 5, that we had been asked to provide an update on respite services within Renfrewshire, and I have done that within the report. There's also item 6. There is just to note that we will be bringing proposals around the strategic plan to the June IJB. And also item 7, we've got the primary care strategy update, but you'll note from your papers that we've got our hosted services update is coming a bit later in the agenda, and Alan Stevenson, the interim director of primary care and GP out of hours, will be here, so we can take any questions you may have about primary care or GP out of hours. And the last thing is just to refer you to 3.5 of Sarah's report, where there's a bit of detail around the care at home pay and grading issues. We are currently working with our trade union colleagues and looking to reach a resolution as soon as possible on that one. Happy to take any questions.
First of all, I just want big congratulations to yourself and the delayed discharge team. You know, it was really good to see them getting the recognition last week at the staff awards, because what a tremendous, you know, to be the best performing delayed discharge through the winter period throughout the whole of Scotland. They really do deserve them to get really well done to your team, Christine. And I see there's a few hands here. So Fiona, you're in first.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. I suppose I'm just going to echo exactly what you were saying yourself, Jennifer. You know, to be the best performing local authorities, some achievement, but that doesn't go without hard work for the people to make that happen, and the, I suppose, the tenacity to keep going with that. And it's a difficult thing to remain where you are, but I think we do have to celebrate the success of the team and the workers that are doing that. So can you pass my thanks on? Thanks.
Thank you, Fiona.
Absolutely, Will. Thank you.
And yourself, John?
Yes, I'm going to repeat what Fiona said and what Christine said, but I think it's worth repeating. And at the awards, there was a great sense of achievement in that award for the delayed discharges. But it was to say that this was raised on the agenda of the, as you would imagine, of the GGC board. And the expression is one that is known throughout Scotland, the boards of Scotland, because we struggle with it very. I mean, particularly the Glasgow IJB, and I sit on it. We struggle to be able to get improvements and so on, because it's a very critical matter in terms of the service that we offer at the front door of our hospitals. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, John. Any other questions or comments on Christine's Chief Officer's report? We're all right. Okay, we can just agree that then.
Ian,
sorry, Councillor Adam, Councillor McMillan was looking to come in.
Sorry, Ian, I actually have the recording transcription for your face, so I'll just take that down. I can see you now. Right, on you go, Ian.
You should better keep it up. No, just echo the views of what other people have said. You know, to get to the top is fantastic, but to stay at the top is really testament to the amount of hard work. And I know we've always been either top or roundabout, but to be top is fantastic. So, and I know these things just aren't a matter of filling in a form and away you go. It's hard work day in and day out. So well done to everybody that's involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So that's agreed. So the next item is item 5, financial report. That's yourself, Sarah.
Yes, hello, good morning everyone. As usual, I will go into tons of detail on the report, especially given the agenda that we have today. It's just, I suppose, basically really to highlight a couple of things in that the overspend has improved from the previous forecast. And that's really partly due to the fact that we've drawn down reserves mid-year, which we agreed previously, but also there's been a significant amount of focused pieces of work by the management team and their teams over the past few months to help to mitigate the projected overspend. So that's actually delivered one-off non-recurring monies to help the position this year. And that includes strict vacancy management. And we've got additional checks and balances in place, including weekly meetings that staff side attend to go through each of our vacancies. And that's once they've already been checked to make sure the budget's in place, that savings that have been agreed have been delivered, etc. So that's all had a positive impact on the balance this year. And as Christine highlighted, in 3.5, I've highlighted the fact that we will need to create a contingent liability in the annual accounts this year to reflect the current negotiations with trade unions on the care at home regrade. We don't know what that will be at the moment, but that will have to be funded from the IJB general reserves. So we'll bring back more information on that when we have that detail. Another area that I would like just to highlight is the current underspend within employee costs. As members will remember that in November we agreed the payroll budget methodology, that's a hard one to say, will change, and we will be able to we took 2 million of savings of that in for 24-25. So that underlying underspend will no longer be prevalent in 24-25. And I think the final thing I would just draw everyone's attention to is the reserves position that we move into 24-25, and there's more detail of that in the actual budget paper later on the agenda. And that's all I've really got to say just now, but obviously happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay, thanks. Ian McMillan.
Thanks very much, Sarah. There's a column that says earmarked reserves on page 25, and near enough down at the bottom it says local authority care home refurbishment. So there's an amount of £107,000. Yeah, can you tell me what care home that was and what the work involved? Thanks.
Oh, I haven't got that detail to hand, Ian, but I'll get that to you. It would be minor works that we've done, but I'll certainly get that detail to you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'd just like to say thanks anyway, Sarah. You know, I know you spend a lot of time sitting down with us away from these meetings and development sessions, ensuring that we're getting our heads around the figures and you break them down to us. So you do a really good job of that, Sarah, just to thank you. So, no, that's us. We can agree, Sarah's report.
I think Margaret wants in.
Sorry, Margaret, I need to pay more attention to hands going up. Right, Margaret.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Sarah. The report is helpful in terms of the update. I wondered, Sarah, in terms of prescribing, because that's been one of the challenges this year, is there going to be a significant lag in our understanding of our year-end prescribing position, or are we now getting closer to understanding on a more real-time basis? Thank you.
Yeah. We're now moved back to where we were in previous years, so the information is up to date. It's always a couple of months of a lag anyway, because of the time it takes to process the prescriptions, etc. So the information that we have is the most up to date. So we're still cautious, obviously, that the projections, obviously based on the volumes and the prices that have gone through historical months, are as accurate as they can be, and it will still be subject to flux as we go through to the year end, but it is as close as it can be and is in line with previous years now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No, so we can agree Sarah's report. Thank you for that, Sarah. Okay, the next item is Sustainable Futures. Frances?
Yep, that's me. Good morning. So this is one of 2 Sustainable Futures papers that will be considered by the IJB today. So this paper, which is for noting, updates members on the continued and challenging environment in which we operate, which members are well aware of, and the IJB's overall savings position. So the report highlights the savings which have already been approved by the IJB, but also those that are still subject to approval from either the IJB or the Council in relation to charging recommendations. The paper also updates members on the overall Sustainable Futures programme in terms of the approach and the scope that the IJB agreed, and we've included in Appendix 1 the visual which previously members agreed that sets that out. So as part of this programme, and in addition to the proposals that are going to be considered by the IJB within the second Sustainable Futures paper, we committed to bringing an update on 3 other areas where we agreed to do a further review with a view to identifying additional potential efficiencies. So these areas were eligibility criteria and assessment and care planning, community meals, and soft facilities management. So I don't plan to go through in huge detail, but in relation to these, the report notes that the eligibility criteria review has been concluded, and revised guidance, good practice and monitoring has been embedded across our services. Also, based on the work to date, it's likely that the HSCP will recommend that the IJB's eligibility criteria threshold remains as critical and substantial. The report also notes that work is underway to review the assessment and care planning, which is closely linked to eligibility criteria, and that a further report will be brought in the June meeting to update members on this. The paper also confirms that, in line with the IJB's decision in November, that the critical and substantial eligibility criteria has now been applied to community meals, and this ensures equity and fairness in provision. We've also introduced new processes to improve this in terms of ensuring that there's timely provision, and also the monitoring of ongoing need of the service to ensure that those that need the service still receive it. And then in relation to the third area of soft FM, which is currently provided by the Council, we note the ongoing work to scope and cost the existing model against alternative options, and this will take account of future demand and service models. And we're also suggesting bringing a further update on this work to the June meeting. In section 9, we provide an update on non-residential charging policy following the IJB's agreement at the January meeting that we submit recommendations to the Council's Leadership Board. Council officers are currently carrying out an engagement process in relation to these recommendations, and will also complete a supporting EQIA, and this will inform an updated paper that will go to a future meeting of the Council's Leadership Board for consideration. The final section of this report relates to the 3 strategic reviews that are proposed to commence in the coming year. These relate to extra care, residential respite and day support, and we commit to bringing a more detailed delivery plan and timeline to the June meeting. So the final point really is that this paper, along with the proposed proposals in the second Sustainable Future paper and the budget paper, will really reiterate the financial challenges facing the IJB and the degree of challenging decisions that will need to be taken going forward. So, as noted in previous updates to the report to this board, that even if the current saving proposals identified are agreed and delivered, this will not be sufficient to meet the budget gap. And members will be aware that from reporting this week from other IJBs, including Edinburgh and Glasgow, who have needed to deliver significant savings packages, that this position is no different for us locally. So that's the key points, but myself and the operational heads of service relating to the areas discussed are available to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, do we have any questions, Francis, on this item? Yes, Fiona Milne, how you doing? Come on in.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I've got a few questions.
Oh, the sounds went, Fiona.
Sorry, I think my signal went there, did it?
Yep,
a few points have been asked to raise today. So first of all, the carers would like to thank the members of the IJB for taking the time to meet and listen to carers. And also thanks for the Renfrewshire Council's motion. Carers are still concerned about the impact on savings that are going to be made and their ability to continue to care for their loved ones. Also, is it possible to have a copy of the whole respite review paperwork? Carers are also concerned it's only information provided in Weaver's Lynn, and they want to know more about other respite packages available. Thank you, that's all just now. Thanks very much.
Right. Great, Fiona. I'll bring in Francis in a second, but I can understand why the respite being on the Chief Officer's report would cause anxiety. It flagged it up to myself as well, but it was actually on the report because it was a request by Ian McMillan. So, you know, don't fear that it's going to be coming to the board anytime soon. I would like to reassure them that that's not going to be the next area we're going to look at. I can understand why it totally caused anxiety, but it's been asked by another elected member to bring out an update. So that's why it was there, Fiona. But listen, I'll bring in Francis to answer the rest of your questions, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. So I just noted that you were looking for additional information on the respite. I didn't pick up any other, it was just points to note, Fiona, in relation to engagement, and you're concerned about the wider carer concerns about savings. Is that right? Which we will note.
I think carers is concerned about the impact it's going to have long term if budgets are cut and they're not getting the support that obviously they require to continue with their caring role.
Okay, that's noted, and the point in relation to respite, we will ensure that we engage with carers on that, and as Jennifer said, it's just to reassure you that the work around that strategic review is not commenced, and we'll be bringing a timeline for that to the next meeting, and that would involve, as with other proposals, engagement with key stakeholders and carers. So I hope that provides a degree of reassurance around that.
That's lovely. Francis, sorry, just one other wee point's just come through there. Carers would welcome the revised guidance for the the word I cannot pronounce.
Eligibility criteria.
That's it, criteria. So they would like the revised guidance in that, please, if that's possible.
Okay, I'll take that as a note as well. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
And I know you had a bit of trouble like myself joining this morning, Fiona, and I don't know if you caught me saying I would just like to thank you for the time you've spent in IJB. I know it's a difficult platform to sit on, and I think you've been a really good advocate for the carers, so you'll be missed. So well done.
Thank you. I have to say, Jennifer, I've not found it particularly difficult advocating for carers. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, listen, and I can tell that in you, Fiona. It comes second nature to you, but you've been a great asset to the board. I know how intimidating this board can be. I sat in it for 5 years before I became the chair, so I do appreciate all your input. Okay, Fiona, I see your hands
up. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. I just want to kind of comment on the section which is 6.3 on page 58, just where there's a mention of self-directed support and the tool that's going to be used in terms of undertaking the assessments. And I know that will be part of the widening and options and that we're putting forward to people in terms of their future needs and care. I suppose it's just to highlight some concerns I have in terms of us pinning our hopes on that resolving a lot of the issues that we have. When I've had some feedback myself from a number of carers in terms of the fact that even when they've gone through the process and they've got a budget allocated to them, there's nowhere to spend their money because there are no providers out there. Basically, they can't get personal assistants to do the work, and there are no providers. So there are actually people who are sitting there with a budget, having gone through the process and being quite happy with the idea of being able to spend their own budget their own way, but they've not been in a position where they can secure the services to be able to deliver on that. So I think it's just, I think we have to take note of that whenever we're looking strategically at what the options are for people going forward. Thanks.
No, I completely agree with you there, Fiona. It's been a bit of an eye-opener for myself during the consultation process when we get out to start meeting and talking to carers, and that's I actually was gobsmacked when I heard that people were sitting with maybe £40,000 of a budget, but they were effectively isolated at home because there was no providers to do it. So that is a real concern, the workforce challenge that we have there, and we have to be open to that when we are looking strategically at the decisions that are coming before us, because what we do not want is unintended consequences and people being isolated and lonely, a year and a half down the line due to decisions, that. Fiona Milne, I see your hands up.
Hi there, just touching.
I think I missed somebody. Sorry, Fiona. I see Stephen Cruikshank's hands up first. Sorry, I'll bring you in next.
Thanks, Chair. It's just to say I've got to agree totally with Fiona on the self-directed support part, because getting PAs is a nightmare. I mean, Engage, I have to say, do everything they can. They advertise vacancies for us. They advertise regularly to try and get us PAs, but getting them is an absolute nightmare for everyone at the moment. They just aren't out there, and trust me, I am looking, and I have been for a few months now, and you just can't get them. And I mean, it's not as if we're not offering a decent wage. It's just that there aren't that many left out there.
That's why it's so important that we have yourself, Stephen, and we have Fiona on the board to hear what's happening on the ground, because certainly that's what I heard as well. I was speaking to parents from Riverbury who had said they had advertised for a PA, had an SDS budget, went to put it on the board within Riverbury, and when they got to the board, they were met with a whole host of other people looking for, providers. So, it's really important that we get this, because I know in an ideal world, we say, right, independence, integration into the community, and you'll have your PA and you'll be able to go about and do these things. But then the reality is, as you say, we don't have the staff to provide that. So, it's something that we have to keep cognizance of as we work our way through this agenda and the options that are coming before us today, Stephen. But thank you for reiterating that fact, Stephen. And I'll bring in Fiona.
Thanks, Chair. I know nationally, up and down the country, there's some areas, some authorities are letting people be flexible with their SDS budget, which I think that was the reasoning the SDS budget was brought in, for people to buy in services that were very person-centred. I think we should be having a conversation around the table to see how Renfrewshire could possibly model what's working nationally.
Well done, Fiona. I see Laura's got her hand up here. She might just be coming in to reinforce that, right, Laura?
Thank you, Councillor Adam, and just feeding into Fiona's point there. So the self-directed support, absolutely right. It's the legislation was there to give people more flexibility, choice and control around how their care is delivered, and absolutely part of what we do in terms of supporting people is to make sure that that option is discussed with people. And absolutely the consideration is how the outcomes will be met, and heard the discussion today around lack of PAs. Direct payments is only one of the options that are available around self-directed support. So there are a whole range of different ways that supports can be met through support providers and buying in of services as well. So I think I take Fiona Milne, your point just in relation to perhaps we need to do a wee bit of work to support people to have better and wider understanding around the options that are available and how their needs and outcomes could be met, and not channeled down the one direction, because I would agree around the issues around personal assistance, but I think there's more ways that we can support needs and outcomes to be met that I think a bit more work on.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Fiona, your hand again.
Thanks, Laura. I'm quite happy to be part of that conversation if needed. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Fiona. And Fiona Nicholson.
Thanks very much. It was really just to say to Laura that it wasn't only personal assistance that I was told about. It was the fact that some of the people who had a budget also were going to providers who have staff of their own and were having difficulty securing it as well. So it wasn't just from a direct payment in terms of personal assistance. Just to clarify that, thanks.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that, Fiona. Okay. Oh, I see there's another hand. Hang on a wee second. Is that yourself, Stephen?
It is, yes, thanks, Chair. Just to say to Laura, I have asked on numerous occasions to find out what we're actually allowed to use our budget for. And every time I've asked, I'm still waiting on an answer. And I don't find that a happy situation to be in, because if I ask in one area, I get told something different in another area throughout Renfrewshire. I've said all along, this needs to be sorted. It needs to be fixed so that everyone is aware of exactly what they can use their budget for. Whereas at the moment, everyone's in limbo and nobody really knows what we can use our budgets for.
Gosh, really, Stephen? I would have thought that you would have had a breakdown of.
No, you don't get a breakdown.
Aspects.
That's the problem, Chair.
Right. I see Laura's got her hand up. Laura.
Thanks, Councillor Adam. I'm really sorry, obviously, to hear that, Stephen, and if we can maybe pick that up offline to discuss your own circumstances and see how we can progress that. So I take the point just around communication, and perhaps there's a wee bit of work we need to do right across Renfrewshire in terms of supporting people's understanding of how budgets are used and supporting people to have their services in place. However, we do have some really good examples of people using very flexibly across the full range of the self-directed support options. So I take the point from yourself, Stephen, absolutely today. So just reflect that I don't think that's the situation across Renfrewshire.
Okay, right. I see Alan McNiven's hands up. Alan, would you like to come in?
Thanks, Chair. It was just to know, obviously at IJB provide a payroll service which supports a lot of SDS clients in Renfrewshire, and obviously the officers here are more than happy to speak to anybody who's picking that up for the first time, because it can be a daunting process, of course, basically you're taking on staff, you're becoming an employer. Yep. So having somebody to talk you through that's a really sort of good method, I think, to get a general understanding. That's out with the recruitment issues which we're feeling across, I think, the public sector and the third sector. Just finding people is really difficult. So that is one of the major challenges we have. What I do know is that in East Renfrewshire there's an SDS forum which brings together a lot of the users who are involved in the SDS support. So it might be an aspect that we might want to think about for Renfrewshire. If we're trying to encourage people to understand SDS, maybe we can be bringing people together who are using it successfully to share that with others who are looking to do the same. So I'm more than happy to support that if needs be. Okay, thank you.
I think that's a really good idea, Alan. Thank you for that. Fiona, I see your hands up.
Hi there, thanks. Just touching on what Alan had said, I'd already done a wee bit of homework and I'd asked for that to happen a year ago in Renfrewshire to have a forum. So I think they were needing staff to set it up, but that's something that carers have already mentioned. We can get to get that actioned.
Well, why don't we put that as an action then? Why don't we get that onto the next agenda as soon as we can, you know, so that, you know, we're all briefed on it. We've all got a good understanding with our third sector partners, you know, so.
Great. Chair, I think it's going back to, again, looking at models that are working nationally and copying them in Renfrewshire rather than reinvent the wheel. There's good work out there, so let's work together and get this sorted for carers.
Yes, it's lessons learned, isn't it? It's learning from, you learn from your colleagues, you learn from other local authorities, absolutely. So yes, I'm going to make sure that's an action that we get on the next agenda, you know. Right, so how are we? Is that us then, that item, Sustainable Futures? So then we go on to the next part of Sustainable Futures. Frances.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Jacqueline, were you looking to come in? Was it just about approving to note?
Just at the end, Frances, sorry, just to put my hand up in advance, sorry.
All right. Oh, okay, sorry, I thought it was just on the back of the last item. Okay, so this is the second Sustainable Futures paper following on from the November meeting when members considered a range of initial savings proposals and agreed that we should further develop these and move to a process of engagement and more detailed impact assessment. These 5 proposals are listed in 3.1 of the paper. And in line with the agreement at the November meeting, this paper sets out the final proposals for 4 of those options. In relation to the 5th option, which was the potential merger of Mirren and Milldale Day Services, a judicial review petition has been served on the IJB and Renfrewshire Council. Accordingly, the details relating to this proposals have not been brought to this meeting as planned. Instead, it's proposed consideration of this option is paused to allow the IJB to seek the required legal advice. So for the 4 options presented today, we've set out how the assessment process was undertaken, so including how the engagement model was done, the approach to the options appraisal in relation to the scoring and criteria, and also the equality impact assessments which have been carried out. The findings for each option are then summarised in the paper, so that includes the appraisal scoring and some supporting commentary. It's just really important to note that it's not been possible to provide the full depth of detail that's been developed by officers within this paper. So to address that, we have had a range of different updates for members through briefings, development sessions. Voting members have also received copies of the full options appraisals and EQIAs to help inform their decision making. So we appreciate there's a huge amount of detail in the options appraisal and EQIAs. So this paper aims to summarise the key scoring and sort of considerations. So we don't, as I mentioned, we don't plan to talk at length about these findings. Rather, for each option, I'm looking to bring in the lead head of service just to briefly cover the result of the assessment carried out and anything else that they feel is really key to highlight to members today before any decisions are made. So if okay, Chair, I firstly plan to pass to Laura in relation to the closure of FlexiCare, and then to Karen O'Byrne, who will cover the other 3 options, which is the proposed reduction in the care home estate from 3 to 2 care homes, the permanent implementation of the closure of 2 older people's day services, and the aligning of capacity of the Disability Resource Centre in line with current occupancy. So if okay, I'll pass over just now to Laura to start with FlexiCare. Thank you.
Okay.
Apologies, Councillor Adam, I see there's a couple of hands up. Perhaps want to come in before I commence?
No, I think they want to hear the proposal first, then the hands are just up for coming after it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Members will now be familiar with the service and details of the proposal relating to FlexiCare, but I'll briefly summarise this for ease of reference. So FlexiCare is additional to the learning disability day services within Renfrewshire, and the only one which is not registered with the Care Inspectorate due to the type, level and frequency of informal low-level social support and activities to adults with a learning disability and or autism. The maximum level of support is 1 to 3 hours a week within FlexiCare, and to some people less frequently on a fortnightly basis, generally in the evenings. Prior to COVID pandemic, the small staff team was supplemented by a higher number of volunteers and some sessional staff when 190 adults accessed the service, most of whom also access wider Renfrewshire day services. The service was suspended completely during COVID period as it wasn't assessed as providing essential priority support, and on reopening, focused solely on 5 adults who had no access to wider day service supports, under 40 of whom are currently accessing the service. The loss of most of the volunteers during the pandemic has meant that the service has been unable to return to previous levels of provision. So for noting, the service is over 30 years old and has never formally been reviewed. Historical arrangements in place include that many of the people who attend have never had a formal assessment to establish alignment with the HSCP eligibility criteria, with the view that some people would not meet the thresholds of substantial or critical need. So picking up on the assessment as part of the options appraisal process for the closure of FlexiCare, it included a comparison of the proposal against the status quo position, which would maintain provision and shows that the proposal to show the service scores more highly as opposed to continuing as it currently is. The assessment also recognises there's less risk and reputational impact associated with maintaining the current position. This is primarily due to feedback from service users and carers during the engagement process who did raise concern that closure would leave a gap in this type of support they feel is needed and not available anywhere else, and that service is highly regarded. The assessment also acknowledged the impact of any potential closure and that the HSCP would require to work with service users and families to support their requested assessments of need and support to identify alternatives, some of which may be, where eligible, referral to other HSCP service or the developing community groups as part of the care planning groups. The assessment also highlights that if the proposal to close the service is not agreed by the IJB, it would require a comprehensive review as the current model is not sustainable. And finally, to note that the concerns raised during the engagement process regarding the closure of the service have been captured within the equality impact assessment and include impact due to age and disability with mitigating actions identified.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thank you for that, Laura. Frances?
Yeah, and then pass over to Karen. Thank you for the next one. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. Thanks, Frances, and thanks, Laura. In terms of the first proposal for discussion is the reduction from 3 to 2 internal care homes. As Frances said, I've spent a lot of time at the development sessions and briefings to IJB members going through a lot of the detail around this. So I'll focus really on the scoring and some of the key points for discussion. In terms of the scoring itself, the assessment really was carried out in relation to 2 elements. First, against the as-at position, which is the 3 care homes remaining open, and the second was against the decision to close a care home and the assessment in respect to which care home would be most appropriate. The reason that we focused on this proposal really is against a backdrop of a national reduction in people seeking out residential care. And in terms of Renfrewshire, we have seen that quite keenly within our 3 residential services. In terms of occupancy rate, we have seen a reduction in occupancy rate since prior to 2018. And we have, at the moment, we have 53 beds that are vacant across our 3 care homes, which has the potential of 180 beds. So we are seeing a substantial amount of vacancies, and that has continued for quite a significant period of time. So since 2020, we have closed down 48 beds, and we haven't had to reopen those beds based on any demand. And currently we have those 48 beds with an additional 5 vacancies on top of that, which makes up those 53 vacant beds. So that's why this proposal was considered. In terms of the scoring as the as-at position, in relation to continuing with our 3 care homes, that scored much lower than the reduction from 3 to 2 care homes. And in terms of the care home scoring itself, in relation to the 3 care homes, Montrose scored the highest in terms of the proposal around which care home to close. In terms of the proposal itself and the scoring, we looked at a number of mitigating factors when we were scoring the most appropriate care home. So we looked at the location, we considered the numbers of residents affected and the number of staff affected. And Montrose, in terms of its position at the moment, it has 36 residents alongside Hunter Hill that has 44 and Renfrew that has 47. And similarly, we considered the impact on staff. And at the moment, in terms of our Hunter Hill, we have 46.7 staff with 3 vacancies. Montrose, we have 36.9 with 6.5 vacancies. And historically, we've always found recruiting to Montrose slightly more difficult than recruiting to our other 3 care homes. And in Renfrew, given that we have an open day service associated with Renfrew, we have a total of 48.5 staff and 2 vacancies. So in terms of that overall impact, whilst we recognise that the closure of Montrose gave us the least financial saving, we also looked at the impact in terms of location as well. And for the scoring in relation to Montrose, that scored that scored the highest, although we recognised in terms of the scoring itself, there wasn't much between the scoring for our care homes. With slightly Montrose scoring at 6.48, Hunter Hill 6.35 and Renfrew scored the least at 4.33. I'm happy to move on if people are okay with that. So if I move on to the next proposal, which is around the permanent closure of Montrose and Falcon day services. And again, we looked at that in terms of scoring the as-at position, which is at the moment we have had since the pandemic 3 day services open. We haven't reverted back to the position of 5 day services open, and a number of those factors are based around actually the demand for our services. And when I look at the demand for our services since the opening of our 3 care home, our 3 day service position, we still continue to see a drop in people who are seeking our day support. That's not to say that there is no demand. However, I looked at the position over the last year and looked at it over the last month, and we continue to see a drop in numbers of people who are attending our day services. So at the moment in Johnston, we have 32 available places, and as at our position in March, what we were seeing was over 32 spaces, we had 18 people attend in Johnston. Ralston, we have 32 places and 17 people were attending. Renfrew, similar, 32 places with 18 people attending. And in terms of our DRC, both the morning and the afternoon sessions, we have 34 available places, and we had 14 attend in the morning and 13 on average attending in the afternoon. So percentage-wise, we vary between 40 to 57% of attendance, even with that reduction of 5 to 3. And that has been as a result of the differences that we have and we have taken forward in terms of day service provision. So we now have a one-to-one support, which is out in the community, and we also have a digital support. And we're also seeing our percentage attendance in relation to this digital and to the community-based outreach model is far greater than the internal model. So they were some of the thinking around the proposal to keep the as-at position in terms of our day service model. And the third proposal is to reduce our DRC in line with staffing model, in line with our occupancy rate. And even with a reduction of 2 staff, we still are seeing that our occupancy rate is far under that, is far less than that 85%. So that's just a very brief description of the proposals and why the proposals were put forward, and some of the scoring that has come out as a result of the proposals being delivered.
Okay, thanks for that, Cam. Frances, is that your last item then? Your last?
Yeah, it really just goes on to the recommendations. But I'm aware that there's a number of hands up at the moment. So before we go on to them, if you want
to go on to Jacqueline, you're first. I see your hands up.
Thanks, Chair. I've got an amendment that I've emailed to James, and I think Elaine's going to share it on the screen. So I'll just wait till that comes up and I'll read that out.
Dave Lowe will send an email to the board members with a copy of the amendment, and I will insert it in the group chat at the moment.
Right, thanks, Mark. I won't start until people have had a chance to read the amendment.
Dave's just confirmed that the email has been issued to all members. Thanks.
Right, I'll give them a minute or two just to read it. It's not very long, so.
I see it in the chat bar.
Right, okay, so I'll make a start now. I think, as I say, it's not very long. So I'm making a move here to reject the proposal to merge Mirren and Milldale. I think people have been waiting a long time, a lot of anxiety caused, and I think we're just prolonging the agony if we don't make a decision on that today. So I've been quite vocal about my support for SDS and the personalisation agenda, and I still believe in that. But I think that only works if the whole system's working, and just reflecting on the comments that we had in the last agenda item, I don't think it is. You know, staff, workforce planning and service position is actually on our IJB Audit Risk and Scrutiny Risk Register. It's 25, extreme high. So we know that people are struggling to get staff at the moment. So that's one reason. As I said before in our development session, it's taken me a lot of soul searching to get to this point, because I went out, I've listened to carers, I've listened to people with lived experience, I've talked to professionals from my voluntary sector background, I've read paper after paper after paper, and that's what has got me to this decision. So it's been well documented that about staff retention. Also, we had a chat there about PAs and how thin on the ground they are. But beyond that, there's also been a move towards PA registration, and disability charities are really concerned about that it will actually force regulation into people's homes, and in that way they'd be institutionalised in their own homes, and that's certainly something that we don't want. If we're going to have a modern agenda, then we don't want to put people into that position. And if we shoehorn people into a policy position where they can't get staff, as you said, Jennifer, they're going to be at home. We don't want a whole generation of people sat at home with a budget and not able to do anything with it. Now, I know that that's not always going to be the case. It's just a current situation. And that's why I've said meanwhile, because, you know, we've got the National Care Service Review ongoing, and that accepted that the whole system wasn't working. Now, I know that the National Care Service bill's not been very popular, even with us in local government, but the whole point of it is it's an acceptance that things need to change and the whole system needs a shake-up. So I think we need to consider that when we're looking at that proposal. Excuse me, I've got a lot of notes. I promise I won't talk for too long. I'll certainly be under the 5 minutes that council allows, I promise you that. So the other thing is obviously talking to carers. We know that the services are for the people with lived experience. It's not for the carers, but the byproduct of that is, you know, the respite that carers get. I've been a carer myself. I know how tough it is. And I also looked at a report that said for every carer who decides that they can't support somebody at home, it would cost an HSCP £114,000, and that's £1.8 million for a year for 16 carers. So I think we need to look at what's a short-term gain and you know, and look at the longer-term gain and think about our future as an IJB. So we've got an opportunity to modernise the service. We had a review in 2018 and we haven't really gone further forward with that. And obviously it was because there was a pandemic. So, but that, I think that we should be looking at that, an opportunity to modernise and, you know, and also let people know about SDS options when things improve. You know, it's not one or t'other, as we reflected in the last agenda item. And my final point is I want to say to Christine, Laura, Karen, Francis, everyone, Sarah, that I've been working with you for 7 years. I think this is the first time that we've kind of not, you know, had a partner of the ways, and it's not come easy for me to do this today, but I've had to, as I say, do a lot of soul searching and listen to the people, you know, professionals as well as people with lived experience. And I know that the IJB is in this position because of political choices and because of a lack of money in the system. And I just want to acknowledge how difficult that is for you, because I know that you are an IJB and an HSCP that care about people and always have done. So I move that we reject the proposal today, and I hope that people accept the sincerity that with which I've brought this amendment forward. Thanks.
Okay, Jacqueline, thank you for that. And I see Fiona as your seconder. Fiona, would you like to come in?
Yes, thanks very much. I suppose just like Jacqueline, I've done a bit of soul searching, a lot of research in terms of this, and I suppose from a voting member in the IJB throughout the papers, we've been reminded that, of our duties to meet the requirements in terms of those financial duties. But I would like to say, however, in my view, we have a wider role. And the wider role is to ensure that delivery is fit for purpose, includes strategic planning, utilising the experience of those who use our services. I think our own strategic plan points to that and points to the duties of the IJB in doing this, when we're taking a strategic view overall. And I quote directly from our own plan, focuses on choice, control and flexibility. And if you indulge me, I'll just go through that. As we develop our services, we will ensure that the people support provided by the HSCP, etc. in the communities broadens the choice available for people to meet changing demand. Support will be built around individual needs and, where appropriate, provide options which improve and move beyond existing service models. A person-centred approach to social care must be premised on ensuring citizens are fully able to exercise their autonomy and choice, and support is available to them. That's a comment from the independent review on adult social care. I think I am fully supportive of us broadening the choice, and I don't know that this proposal in terms of merging the two centres broadens the choice any further than is already there. I think we have to think of the impact that it would have on those who use the services, the carers, the cared for, and prolonging the uncertainty as a result of pausing this activity. And that's why I'm supportive of the amendment not to progress the merger meanwhile. Thanks.
Thank you, Fiona. Right, we have lots of hands up now. Okay, Margaret Kerr, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I'm a bit confused as to why we're being asked to make a decision on something that we are being only be provided with an update today to tell us that the process has been paused due to a judicial review. There is nothing on today's agenda that is asking the IJB to make a decision about the work and engagement work that's been done around the proposed merger of services. So what I have in front of me is a recommendation to make a decision on something that we actually don't have information on. So to me, the recommendation actually doesn't make sense. We have 2 paragraphs in the IJB papers that just sets out that rightly we should be taking advice and be taking steps cautiously around the judicial review and taking that very seriously. As a board, we absolutely must take that judicial review seriously, and I understand we are waiting on advice on how to progress with that, which is the right thing. We should not be doing anything rash, but the recommendation in front of me sort of senses an implication that we have to make a decision on something that we are not being asked to decide on today. So I would actually question whether the recommendation is valid based on the papers we have, and if it is considered valid, could we propose, Chair, that we have a short adjournment to allow me to have a further discussion to understand this?
I think a short adjournment wouldn't be a bad idea, Mags. There was a quality impact assessment. We did have a meeting with the CLO yesterday, and the general consensus, what we took from it was the actual grounds of the judicial review are so incorrect that, you know, we are okay to discuss it and we are okay to proceed on it because, you know, as I say, the bases of the judicial review are incorrect. It said that we made a decision in November about Mirren and Milldale regarding without an equality impact assessment. So that is incorrect. It totally shouldn't go off the starters blocks. I appreciate, you know, whenever you hear judicial review, I've never had one myself, you know, and we have taken legal advice. I can bring Mark in to clarify where we stand on the decisions getting made today, but I'm absolutely for taking a pause on this item as far as having a break to allow you to furnish you with any information that you feel necessary before we can make this decision, Mags. I mean, it has been on the agenda for a long time. We have had development sessions on it. You know, there was only discussions regarding the pause as recent as last week due to that being submitted. But up until then, we've been briefed on every item of the options that have been put before us. So I'll bring in Mark, and Mark can advise us as where we stand here, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, Councillor, Mags is correct in the aspect of saying that we are not required to take a decision today. Absolutely, that is a matter for the board. The board can choose to do what it wishes in respect of this matter. What you have before you is a report with a recommendation from the officers is that you note the update in a later section in the report, and the update provides information indicating that there's a judicial review and that legal advice is required on that. I understand that that legal advice was given to the chair by the CLO yesterday. However, as is always the case, it's a matter for the board what they wish to decide in relation to any matter before them. In respect of this particular proposal, there are effectively, as I see it, three options for the board. Board can accept the comments which are laid out in the paper and agree that the matter will come back later once the board has had the opportunity to consider legal advice on the judicial review. The second option would be that the board could choose not to wait on that legal advice and decide not to proceed with the proposal to merge. That's what's set out, as I understand it, in the motion from Councillor Cameron and Councillor Erling Nicholson. That would be an entirely competent decision. I am not providing legal advice to the board in the terms of the judicial reviews. That I'm acting for the council in that matter, not the IJB. However, the observation I would make is that the judicial review seeks to stop that decision, stop the merger of the services. If the motion was passed, there would be no merger of the services, so it's not in any way inconsistent with the content of the judicial review. And the other observation I would make on the judicial review is that there was no interim order granted in respect of that, so there is absolutely nothing in the court at the moment that prevents the board taking any decision on this matter today. Third option would be for the board to say that they don't wish to wait on the legal advice and wish to proceed to make a decision and agree to merge the services, as was I think the suggestion or potential suggestion following the outcome of the EQIA. So all three of those options are perfectly competent for the board to decide should they wish to do so. But as Max has indicated, there is no requirement on the board to make a decision either for or against the proposal today. That is not required, but it is options that are put in front of the board. If we are going to make an adjournment, the one other thing that I would raise with you, Chair, is that I have had intimation of a motion from Councillor McMillan, and it may well be wise, if Councillor McMillan is happy for me to do so, to circulate that before we would move into any adjournment, so that everybody would have the opportunity of considering what he is setting out as well, because his motion relates to other matters other than Mirren and Milldale, and obviously the board are being asked in respect of those later bullet points in the recommendations to make decisions either to approve or reject, and his motion covers that. So if Councillor McMillan's happy for me to share, I'll do that now.
Yep, that'd be helpful.
Happy for you to share that, Mark.
Right, I will share it in the group chat, and Dave Lowe will send an email out to members. The final thing I will say on that is obviously Councillor McMillan will need a seconder for his motion, so this will allow board members to consider it to see if anybody wishes to support them. Thank you. Dave has confirmed the email's been sent to you.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to read Ian's motion or amendment? Okay. Ian, do you want, I see your hands up, do you want to come in? Do you have a seconder first of all? Do we have anybody that will second?
I was going to ask for a seconder, but if I don't get a seconder, can I just speak in, although the motion, the amendment would fall, can I speak in general? Right, okay, so I'm seeking a seconder for that amendment.
Just before you go on, Councillor McMillan, if I could just say, Chair, Anne Cameron Burns has her hand up. I don't know if that's with a view to seconded. Councillor McMillan's motion might be appropriate to check.
Right. Okay, let's see. Anne, are you there? Oh, I see there's a few hands. Yes, Anne.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I would like to second Ian's motion.
Okay. So we have a seconder for Ian's motions, we've got a seconder for Jacqueline's motion. So Mark, guide us through the process here.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose the first question is, I think there was a request for a recess, which obviously there'll need to be a decision on whether you wish to do that to allow people some time to consider matters. If so, there's a couple of options in respect of that. One is quite simply that everyone just takes time to consider the position without necessarily leaving the meeting. Another alternative would be that we could in effect move to a recess where we could leave the voting members of the board in the meeting and ask everybody else to leave for the time being, and then let them know when we're resuming. Or the third option would be simply that we all leave the meeting and rejoin at a specified time. So looking at the time being 11:15 at the moment, if you were minded to say 15-minute recess, everybody would simply rejoin at 5:30. That would be an option. In terms of the motion, the motion, I will take Councillor Cameron's intimation as the motion on the basis it was received first, and Councillor McMillan's amendment. The only inconsistency between the motion and the amendment at the moment is that Councillor McMillan's motion, amendment simply seeks to, I believe, note the, excuse me, I'm just going to check that. Yes, it's simply his amendment asks the IJB to agree the third point, which the third point being simply to note the update provided on the Mirren and Milldale proposal. That's obviously inconsistent with the terms of Councillor Cameron's motion. Councillor Cameron's motion is obviously moving that a decision be made in respect of that. Otherwise, there's no inconsistency because Councillor Cameron's motion hasn't touched on any of the other recommendations in the paper. So effectively, the only live matter before the board as we speak in respect of the other recommendations set out in the paper would be Councillor McMillan's amendment. So if any member of the board was minded to reach a different view on those proposals from Councillor McMillan, we would require a further amendment covering those, failing which the only proposal in front of the board at this stage would be Councillor McMillan's amendment in respect of those matters. If there is still the remaining inconsistency on the third bullet point, we would be required to go to a vote on that point. I suppose the question would be whether Councillor Cameron would wish to accept Councillor McMillan's amendment, or whether Councillor McMillan would wish to cover that matter off at the moment. And I do see he's got his hand raised.
Ian, come on in.
Okay, I'll just be fairly blunt here. I certainly wasn't expecting that motion from Councillor Cameron. The main reason I wasn't expecting it was because I didn't think that was up for debate today, to be perfectly honest with you. However, given what Mark Connican has just said, listen, I've never hidden my views on Mirren and Milldale, and I completely and utterly support Councillor Cameron's motion. Now, this is the mechanics. I'm trying to get my head around the mechanics, how that I can be supportive of that, and I don't even know if my seconder would be supportive. But if there was any way that my you know, my motion, sorry, my amendment is what I believed we were discussing today. But certainly I would be supportive of Jacqueline Cameron's motion. So I'm not entirely sure how I would incorporate that. And obviously we don't know if Jacqueline Cameron would be agreeable to the rate of my amendment. So I'm not entirely sure how, because I want to be part of the motion that, you know, supports the maintaining of the Milldale and the Mirren, as well as what I've already got on my amendment as put forward.
Okay, Mark. I think the next thing would be to ask Jacqueline if she's willing, but I'll bring in Mark.
Yeah, if Councillor McMillan is indicating that he wants to delete the reference to the third bullet point from his amendment, and that I think that's relatively simple. So his amendment would read IJB agrees points 1 and 2 of the recommendations as outlined in section 2, and then the rest remains unaltered. That would remove any inconsistency between his amendment and the motion. If he wishes to make that change, then where we would be left with is whether any other member, including Councillors Burns and Ellie Nicholson, wish to adopt a contrary position to the remainder of Councillor McMillan's amendment in respect of the other 4 proposals.
Right. Okay. Ian, are you want, first of all, right, I think we need a break to actually, you know, get our heads around all these amendments and motions here. I would suggest that the voting members remain with Mark to give us advice, if that's at all possible.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. If we can ask the other members to leave the meeting. Can I suggest, convener, Chair, that we ask them to rejoin at 11:30? Would that be acceptable?
Yep, I think that's fine.
So if I can ask everyone other than the voting members to depart the meeting, thank you.